Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take your sources, find the essential knowledge, and give you that shortcut to being truly informed.
And today we have something really special.
We do. This is a fascinating one, a custom deep dive for you, our listener, K. Brad Barfield, because the source material isn't, a government report or some dusty archive.
No, today we are jumping headfirst into a novel, a whole meticulously constructed universe that you've created.
It's centered around this amazing character, Cooter, and this massive yet somehow hyper-local event called simply The Update.
It's a phenomenal piece of work. We've been reading through The Fire and the Feather, Book 1 of the Book of Bok, which is all narrated by June herself.
She's got this great title.
Oh, she does. She's the auditor and interpreter of the new system, and she's based in Egypt Township, Ashley County, Arkansas.
Which, post-update, is now officially the version 2.0 operating environment.
I love that detail.
We too, and what jumps out right away is just the incredible narrative texture. It's this seamless and often hilarious fusion of styles.
It really is.
You get this grounded, deep, Southern realism. It's got that specificity of place that, as our listener Brad pointed out, really evokes writers like Charles Portis.
Oh, absolutely. That influence is so clear. But then it just collides head-on with this massive, high-concept, almost, bureaucratic cosmology.
Right. The universe isn't just vast and mysterious. It's governed by these maddeningly precise administrative protocols.
And that tension is where the brilliance is. It's this profound thought experiment, but it's all wrapped in this sharp Southern wit and this deep ecological insight.
So it's using this fictional story to ask some really fundamental questions.
Exactly. Like, what's the real cost of our ecological debt? How do we even process information overload? And maybe the biggest one, what happens when this ancient cosmic mandate for a course correction clashes with our own deeply ingrained human stubbornness?
Which is perfectly personified by Papa, the Grand Igniter.
Oh, Papa. He's the perfect foil. His just absolute refusal to accept that the fundamental rules of the universe have changed.
That's where all the comedic friction comes from.
Totally. He's the old guard staring down a forced software update he never asked for and doesn't want.
But it's not just for laughs. In putting this all together for our deep dive, we found the story delivers these really tangible, educational takeaways that are woven right into the plot.
Yeah, and we're going to get into them. We're going to be talking about the real science of prescribed burn ecology, the wisdom in indigenous practices like the Three Sisters planting method,
The black drink.
the black drink, yeah, and even some really detailed celestial mechanics, specifically that Caddo and Choctaw alignment known as the Path of Souls.
So it's a universe that's built to be funny, deeply entertaining, and surprisingly informative all at once.
It succeeds on all fronts.
Okay, so let's unpack this. A massive shift in reality.
Yeah.
Where does something like that even begin? It doesn't start with a bang, does it?
No, not at all. It starts with an accounting error.
So the update is basically an administrative correction, not an apocalypse.
Precisely. This whole cosmic shift doesn't kick off with fire from the sky or some, grand spiritual ascension. It begins with a very precise, verifiable administrative error in timekeeping.
I find that choice just so insightful. Instead of some big, chaotic, dramatic moment, the system signals its failure with this mundane little glitch.
Yes, all the clocks in Egypt Township freeze, just stop for what the source meticulously notes as one clean heartbeat.
At a super specific time, too. 12:21 p.m. on December 21st, 2012. A Friday.
Right, lunchtime. A moment of just profound ordinariness.
And that time, 12:21 p.m., that's crucial, isn't it? If it were midnight, it would feel symbolic.
Exactly, but 12.21 suggests like a scheduled system check or a rollover failure that happened mid-cycle. It's exactly when the Mayan long count calendar cycled out. It's like the old system just hit a hard stop.
And then the clocks just jerk forward again. June says almost irritated.
And Papa's immediate reaction is just perfect. Well, hell, the day missed a step.
It's the perfect distillation of that old way of thinking, right? Acknowledge the error, minimize it, and just ignore what it actually means. It's systemic denial.
Total denial. But that's in sharp contrast to how the family and, more importantly, the animals react. They know something is deeply wrong.
So the clock freeze is the first sign, but there are three others that show just how deep the system change goes.
Yeah, and the animal reactions are where reality really starts to bend.
The second sign is the barking of Steve, the family dog.
Right.
The Fire and the Feather by K. Brad Barfield, December 8th, 2025. Chapter 1. The Vibes Were in Recession. I did not know the world was breaking yet. I only knew the vibes were in recession, which is the ecological equivalent of your check engine light blinking once and then pretending everything is fine. I wrote it down in The Receipts, my spiral-bound audit notebook, on August 27th, 2012, 7:14 p.m. Central Standard Uncertainty. Vibes trending downward, sun off by 2-3 minutes, animals glitching, ridge appears to be buffering. No one in my family was alarmed by any of this except me. Papa blamed my clocks, Mimo blamed the air's handwriting, General Beauregard blamed the sun directly, which is bold for a chicken, but entirely on brand. 1. The first anomaly that anyone acknowledged besides me. To be clear, none of the symptoms were catastrophic. They were administrative. The saline river smelled like it had been edited by someone unfamiliar with the original draft. The persimmons ripened early in a way that Mimo described as spiritually premature. Pig built a mud wallow that followed a mathematical spiral, even though she's never taken geometry. And the cicadas, all of them, started vibrating like someone had set the whole backyard to airplane mode. These are the kinds of details normal people would not care about. Unfortunately for my sanity, my brain is more spreadsheet than sponge cake, and everything registers whether I want it to or not. So I wrote it all down. Not because I knew it mattered, but because it felt like the world was adjusting something upstream, and I did not want to miss the version history. 2. The ridge misbehaves. On September 3rd, I walked out to the terrace of the Cooter farm, our high ground above Egypt Township, to take pictures of what I call twilight overstimulation hour. That's the part of the day when the light changes its mind every 30 seconds and nobody acknowledges it. That's when I saw it. Big Mound Ridge was casting its evening shadow in the wrong direction. Not close enough wrong, not sunset is weird in Arkansas wrong. More like the ridge is participating in a celestial dialogue with someone who is not us. Papa said shadows don't commit insubordination. Mimo said the ridge was feeling itself. Beauregard stared for a long time and refused comment. I wrote, shadow rotated 10 to 11 degrees southwest. This is not standard ridge behavior. Recommend monitoring. 3. A small lecture on predictability, which I delivered to myself. Egypt Township normally operates according to rules so old they aren't written anywhere, but everyone knows them. Chickens roost where they roost. Rivers behave like they're supposed to. The ridge sits still. Time stays in its lane. Mimo's porch is the unofficial courthouse of existence. But this year felt unsupervised. Time wasn't late or early. It was lazy. Wind paused mid-gust like it was buffering. Dragonflies performed reconnaissance spirals above the yard. Even the grasshoppers acted like their union was on strike, except we don't reference strikes anymore. Something was changing. I didn't know what yet, but I could feel the land checking its calendar. The real one, not the paper one you buy at the feed store. The one the ridge uses, the old one, the one that tells the sky when to turn itself. I did not like the implications of that at all. 4. General Beauregard's warning, which I ignored at first. On September 11th at 7:03 a.m., General Beauregard leapt onto the roof of the four-wheeler and crowed at the sun with the seriousness of a man issuing a subpoena. The crow didn't behave like sound. It behaved like a notification ping sent through the wrong network. The ridge echoed the call half a second too late. Time stuttered. Don't start, I told him, which is not a productive way to engage with a chicken experiencing a metaphysical awakening. He crowed again, slower this time, as if speaking to something very far away. I wrote, acoustic anomalies detected. Feather protocol activating. 5. Papa finally notices something. Papa believes in fire, weather, timber, and consequences. He does not believe in phenomena. But on the morning of September 19th, even he admitted something was happening. "The land's holding fuel wrong," he said, standing over his burn plan like it was an affidavit. Mimo, without looking up from her tea, said, "The land ain't wrong. You're out of tempo." I would never say it out loud, but Mimo is usually correct in a way that feels illegal. Papa continued, "The ridge was shining this morning." "Reflecting the sun?" I asked. "No," he said. Shining. I wrote more notes than I will ever admit to. 6. Mimo's official diagnosis. Mimo rocked twice, which is her version of capping a microphone. "It's the calendar," she said. "What about the calendar?" I asked. "The real one," she said. "Not the one you buy at the feed store. The one the ridge uses. The old one. The one that tells the sky when to turn itself." I stared at her. "Are you telling me the land is following a different date?" She stared back. "I'm telling you everything else is on schedule." I did not like the implications of that at all. 7. Closing notes, preheating. By the end of September, the ridge held two shadows at once. The river forgot a bend that had existed since 1942. A quail returned to a hollow that had been empty for half a decade. The light changed color for exactly 4 seconds every night at 8:14 p.m. And I, unfortunately, could feel something enormous preparing to land on the calendar. I wrote on the last line of September, "System entering preheat mode. Major event inbound. No estimate available." I didn't know what the event was then. I didn't know about the galactic core, or the first update of 550 AD, or the way smoke can behave like a prayer when the ridge aligns, or that our rooster would soon negotiate on behalf of the entire middle world. I only knew the truth the land was whispering. The world is getting ready to reboot. And I was the only one writing any of it down.
And Steve is described as this gentle soul, normally afraid of wet grass. But suddenly he's in the yard barking with this profound existential urgency.
He's not being aggressive. He's sounding an alarm about the structure of reality itself.
The animals get it instantly. They don't have our capacity for denial. The chickens freeze. Pig, who we later find out is the director of energy and agriculture.
We'll get to that.
She looks up like the sun just violated an NDA.
Then the third sign, which involves General Beauregard, the feather.
The rooster.
The rooster. Now, roosters are supposed to be bound by sunrise, right? But this is happening under a waxing moon. And he lets out these full-volume, directionally authoritative morning crows.
And he's aiming them at a specific star. He's using cosmic coordinates. He's not just making noise.
And Memo, the matriarch, she understands immediately. She just says, the start.
She knows. The feather is calibrating the local grid to the galactic clock.
And finally, the fourth sign is personal to June, our narrator.
It is. She sees her pre-2012 younger self in the bathroom mirror, just for a flicker.
That's a temporal layer, right?
Yeah.
The old realities cache is overlapping with the new installation.
Exactly. And that's the moment June knows she has a role to play. Her identity is defined as having a spreadsheet brain, not sponge cake.
So she's genetically predisposed to record and categorize chaos.
She becomes the system's essential diagnostic tool, whether she wants to or not.
And she immediately starts logging these anomalies in her spiral-bound notebook, the receipts.
And the entries are just a hilarious collision of the sublime and the bureaucratic.
Oh, they're fantastic. She treats this subjective cosmic horror with this objective audit-level language.
Right. She notes, vibes trending downward.
Sun off by 2-3 minutes.
And my personal favorite, the utterly chilling ridge, appears to be buffering.
Buffering?
Yeah.
As if the landscape is struggling to load its own software update.
Yeah. And June's refusal to let any data go unlogged is the first real step towards stabilizing this new system.
But the deep irony here is that while June is logging all this cosmic weirdness, the practical immediate crisis facing the family is much more grounded. It's in the Arkansas dirt.
It is. It's the decades-long failure of fire suppression.
This is where the story really grounds the cosmology in actual ecological reality. The main symptom of the pre-update world is what it calls the fire deficit.
Yeah, the land in Egypt Township is ecologically constipated.
A great way to put it. There's just this massive accumulation of fuel-dead leaves, underbrush, all over the forest floor.
And we need to talk about the history here for a second, because this isn't just a metaphor. It's an indictment of a real, specific human policy.
Right, the fire deficit comes from a century of mandatory fire suppression, starting with the notorious 1935 10 a.m. policy.
Which required that all forest fires be completely extinguished by 10 a.m. the day after they were spotted.
Which sounds good on paper, maybe.
Maybe, but the result was catastrophic for the entire southern ecosystem, which actually requires periodic, low-intensity fire for nutrient cycling and to keep hardwoods from taking over.
So by stamping out all those natural small fires for decades, they basically created an ecological time bomb.
A huge, unnatural fuel load that was way more dangerous than the smaller burns nature intended.
And Papa, the grand igniter, is ironically trying to fix this. He's trying to do a prescribed burn to comply with a local law, Act 695.
He's trying to follow the human bureaucracy, but the land itself, the ecosystem, it just rejects him over and over.
He can't get his fire started.
Nope. The ecosystem has entered a state of refusal. The weather won't stabilize. The fuels won't dry out properly. The wind refuses to commit. The land is waiting.
Waiting for a different kind of fire.
For a scheduled cosmological ignition. Not Papa's ego-driven attempt to check a box on a government form.
And the land starts to, well, communicate this demand, doesn't it?
It does. June logs these weirdly specific anomalies. Leaves are dropping in patterns that look like controlled burn exercise diagrams.
And a big Mound Ridge starts to shine from within, not reflecting light, but generating it. And breathing wrong.
Yeah. The land is physically manifesting a demand for a fire that is, as the source says, older, scheduled, cosmological.
This leads to that moment of horror for Papa when he realizes this place wants fire, but not mine.
His control is obsolete, and that sets the stage perfectly for the real agent of change here.
General Beauregard.
The feather. The tension just builds until Beauregard, the feather, begins his cosmic pilgrimage. And this is not a random walk. This is a meticulously calculated departure.
It's chronicled with the precision of a NASA launch sequence.
It is. He shows these pre-departure symptoms that confirm he's not just a chicken, he's an instrument of cosmic alignment. He stops all the chicken fights.
And he starts crowing in geometric patterns.
Triangles, arcs, and then a spiral that perfectly matches the Milky Way's galactic bulge. He's calibrating himself to stellar coordinates.
His departure is time-stamped. 4:1:10 a.m. on October 29th, 2012. And he heads straight for the bottoms, the lowest part of the land, where it meets the ridge.
That specific movement confirms his purpose, and the human interpretations of this could not be more polar.
Chapter 2. The Fire Deficit. I did not set out to diagnose the entire lower Mississippi Valley. I only meant to figure out why Popperl was behaving like a man trapped inside a malfunctioning weather app. But the deeper we moved into the fall of 2012, the clearer it became that the problem was not Papa. The problem was the land, and the land was constipated. That is Papa's term, not mine, although from an ecological standpoint, it is technically accurate. A century of fire suppression had packed the understory tight as a hoarder's attic. Cedars where cedars did not belong. Sweet gum saplings forming informal militias. The whole place smelled like a forest suffering from emotional backlog. I wrote in the receipts, fuel load excessive. Land needs a cleanse. Symptoms consistent with textbook fire deficit. Papa's annual autumn meltdown. Every year around September, Papa started pacing the yard with the restlessness of a man trying to negotiate with atmospheric conditions. He checked humidity like other men check football scores. He carried a wind gauge in his pocket the way Baptists carried pocket-sized New Testaments. And every year, he said the same thing. If we don't burn this winter, the land is gonna get irritable. Memo always replied with, "It already is," which was true in both ecological and interpersonal ways. But 2012 was worse. Papa wasn't merely irritable, he was baffled. The weather wouldn't stabilize, the fuels wouldn't cure, the dew point kept behaving like it had entered a different industry, and the wind refused to commit to a direction long enough to justify ignition. You can tell when a man loses faith in the wind. It's not pretty. The Great Suppression, my unrequested history lesson. The fire deficit didn't start with my generation. It didn't even start with Papa's generation. It started in 1935 when the federal government rolled out the 10 a.m. policy, which declared that all fires must be extinguished by 10 a.m. the day after detection. This is what we call a well-intentioned disaster. Suppression meant safety, supposedly. But in practice, it meant the land accumulated more and more fuel every year, like a digital hard drive filling with forgotten files until your computer wheezes and begs for mercy. Papa liked to explain it this way. The woods ain't meant to be tidy, June. They're meant to be reset. Mema's version was more poetic. If you smother a candle, you choke the room. My version, in the receipts, fire is a required maintenance protocol. Exclusion leads to lag and eventual crash. The land starts asking for fire. By early October, I swear the land itself was hinting. Not in a mystical sense, in a practical one. Leaves were dropping in patterns that made no meteorological sense, as if gravity was participating in a controlled burn exercise. Spider webs started aligning along faint wind corridors that predicted where smoke would travel. The ridge hummed at night, a low vibration like a machine warming up. Even the cattle on the neighbor's place were acting like fire chasers. They stood along the fence lines, staring at our back pasture with the anticipation of spectators waiting for a parade. I'm not saying cows understand fire ecology, but I'm also not saying they don't. Papa performs the ritual of the burn plan. On October 7th, Papa sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad, his fire handbook, a calculator older than I am, and a cup of coffee so strong it could have revived the dead. This meant it was time to write the burn plan. A burn plan is essentially a spell written in bureaucratic language. It contains humidity parameters, transport wind minimums, mixing height requirements, smoke dispersion predictions, fuel moisture estimates, contingency protocols, escape fire strategies, liability considerations, and Papa's personal notes, which read like scripture. He wrote the date at the top. Prescribed burn 2012, contingent on atmospheric cooperation. Then he drew a little box around it, which in Papa's handwriting means, do not argue with the plan. I watched from the doorway. You doing the whole thing tonight? He asked to. Things are changing. Define things. He shook his head in the vague, circular way men use when they suspect the universe is undergoing reconfiguration, but don't want to admit it out loud. VI. Memo issues her warning. Memo did not believe in burn plans, but she respected their ceremonial power. She walked into the kitchen, looked once at Papa's paper, and then declared, "Timing ain't right. Something upstream is off tempo." Papa did not appreciate this cosmic interference. "The land's ready," he said. "No," she said firmly. "The land is restless. There's a difference." Memo could tell the difference because she spent every morning on the porch listening to whatever gossip the breeze brought through the pecan trees. If something was wrong with reality, she was always the first to know. VI. The animals vote. A few days later, the entire barnyard staged what I can only describe as a behavioral referendum. The chickens roosted on the wrong side of the coop. Pig dug a trench that aligned perfectly with the southwest horizon. The goat, which his name is Leonard, stared at the ridge like it owed him money. Even the farm dog wouldn't cross the terrace line. General Bugard strutted around acting like he was running for office on a pro-fire platform. The message was clear. We are entering fire season whether you humans acknowledge it or not. I wrote, animal behavior suggests ecological urgency, fire deficit reaching critical threshold. VI. Papa snaps. Quietly. On October 20th, Papa stood at the edge of the terrace with his drip torch, staring at the pine stand like he expected it to apologize. He did not light anything, he just hovered. "This ain't right," he finally said. "What's not right?" I asked. "The way the land's breathing. It's too shallow." I didn't know land could breathe wrong, but I added it to the list. Papa looked at me then, and his face had that expression men get only when they've encountered a truth they do not like, but cannot deny. "This place wants fire," he said, "but not mine." That sentence rattled me in a way I didn't admit until much later. Because if the land wanted fire that wasn't Papa's, it meant the land was preparing for a different kind of ignition. Not a prescribed burn, not an accident, not a human-made event. Something older, something scheduled, something cosmological. Something with a date attached to it. December 21st, 2012. By Halloween, I had 5 pages of notes documenting the land's worsening mood. Understory density increasing. Sweet gums colonizing like imperialists. Ridge brightness elevated. Wind inconsistent. Animals anticipatory. Fire deficit critical. It was clear the ecosystem was not merely unbalanced, it was waiting. Waiting for a fire no one here had planned. Waiting for a reset older than township. Waiting for a signal older than agriculture. Waiting for the moment the ridge would align itself with the sky again. And I, unfortunately, was the only one writing any of it down. The vibes were not just in recession anymore. They were in full decline.
Polarized.
Right. Papa's take is simple. Damn bird's lost his mind. He files it under farm animal incompetence.
But Memo, watching from her porch, she knows exactly what's happening. She says he has his orders and is listening for alignment.
So what's actually at stake here? I mean, if the feather is so important, why couldn't Papa just, grab him and stop the whole update?
And that's the beauty of the system's design. The feather is operating on a jurisdiction that's way higher than human will. You can't just stop it.
It's like trying to stop a software update by unplugging your monitor.
Exactly. The process is now internal to the system, and the land itself confirms this.
After Beauregard leaves, the ridge gives off that faint internal luminescence.
Which Memo immediately interprets as the ridge taking attendance.
So the hardware is acknowledging the start of the next phase.
It really drives home this point that the animals and the elders, they're working from an ancient systemic script that the rest of us lost centuries ago.
So Beauregard is gone, the land is buffering, and June has a notebook full of terrifyingly specific data. Her next step as a good auditor has to be finding the system manual.
Exactly. When you have a glitch, you check the logs. When the logs aren't enough, you find the documentation. So June audits the Cooter attic, and she finds the source code for the entire operation.
The Book of Bok.
The Book of Bok, a leather-bound ledger kept by generations of Cooters, starting with James Tater Cooter.
Memo just calls it the family's chicken Bible.
Which, again, is that perfect fusion of high-stakes cosmic importance and low-stakes rural reality.
And this book, it provides the historical context for everything that's happening.
It does. It documents the first disappearance of the general back in 1912, so this has happened before. But more importantly, it references the 550 AD precedent as the time of the first update.
550 AD. Okay, that's not a random date. That puts the first update right in the middle of the late Baytown period of indigenous Mississippian culture.
A period marked by huge societal shifts and environmental adaptation in that very region. So this gives the 2012 event a 1,500-year cyclical context. It's on a schedule.
And the book lays out the mandate very clearly.
It says, when the sky aligns with the ridge and the feather answers the call, the update begins.
The feather's role is explicit. He remembers what the land forgets.
He holds the ancestral memory needed for this whole ecological reboot.
But the truly chilling part is what June finds on the final page. It's personal.
It is. The final page is addressed directly to her. When the feather departs, the auditor must rise. Keep the notes, for the world will need a witness.
She was always meant to be the auditor. Her spreadsheet brain wasn't a quirk. It was a required system component.
It is her official draft notice into the cosmic bureaucracy. But this new reality isn't just relying on old books. It's actively upgrading the ecosystem's fauna. The glitch fauna.
And nothing demonstrates this better than Pig.
Pig is incredible.
The pig iron paradox. I really want to spend some time here because this goes beyond just magical realism. This is like conceptual sci-fi about localized entropy manipulation.
Agreed. So Pig, who's just described as a large hog, she somehow builds a mud wallow that is a mathematically precise logarithmic spiral.
Not just any shape. This is the spiral you find in nautilus shells, in hurricanes, and spiral galaxies. It's a fundamental geometric signature of the universe.
And she builds it without any tools or, conscious knowledge of geometry.
And the physical anomaly that results from this just breaks the laws of thermodynamics.
Yeah.
The wallow's internal temperature is measured at 71 degrees Fahrenheit.
While the ambient air is 82 and the ground is 85. It should be warmer, but it's significantly cooler. It's an insulated cold coil.
It suggests that Pig, through this geometric alignment that's enabled by the new system, has created a localized entropy sink. A cooling system that defies physics in that one spot.
It's a miracle of glitch physics.
But is the spiral just for cooling? Or does it have a bigger, more functional purpose?
It has a purpose. The source confirms that Pig is later found to be using the spiral for meteorological prediction.
She predicts rain.
12 minutes before it happens, with uncanny accuracy. Pig is now a functional engineer for the new system. She's using cosmic geometry for high-resolution environmental prediction and control.
And this glitch fauna network goes beyond just Pig. We see Steve, the family dog, revert or maybe upgrade to his ancestral self.
He becomes a red wolf, Canis rufus rufus.
He gets a higher resolution.
Chapter 3. The General's Departure. If you ever want to ruin your sense of stability, I recommend waking up before dawn to find your rooster standing at the edge of the yard like a man waiting for a bus that isn't supposed to exist. That was October 29th, 2012. The morning General Beauregard decided he was finished with domestic life and ready to pursue whatever cosmic agenda had been whispering to him since late summer. I stepped outside to check the temperature and instead found Beauregard perched on the fence post, looking southwest with the fixed concentration of a prophet on salary. "Don't do anything dramatic," I said. He did not acknowledge me, which is how you know a rooster is about to do something dramatic. Early indicators of impending nonsense. It didn't happen all at once. There were warning signs, the kind you notice only in hindsight, the way you notice a gas leak only after the explosion. Sign number 1. He stopped fighting the younger roosters. For a bird who treated hierarchy like a constitutional right, this was alarming. Sign number 2. He crowed at inappropriate hours. Papa called it nuisance crowing. Memo called it omens. I called it version 1 of a problem. Sign number 3. He began pacing the yard in geometric patterns, not random walking, patterns, triangles, arcs. A curious spiral I later discovered matches the curvature of the Milky Way's galactic bulge. Sign number 4. He stared at Big Mound Ridge like it owed him money. That was the biggest clue. Nobody stares at the ridge unless the ridge is staring back. The argument nobody won. The night before he left, Papa tried to give Beauregard a lecture on responsibility, as though explaining proper farm etiquette to a bird undergoing a metaphysical awakening was going to help anything. Papa leaned over the roost and said, "You crow at dawn. You protect the hens. You do not go messing around in the bottoms. That is the entire job description." Beauregard blinked once very slowly. Memo, listening from her rocking chair, shook her head and said, "That rooster ain't listening to you. He's listening for something else." "Listening for what?" Papa asked. She pointed toward the ridge. "Alignment," Papa muttered something unprintable and walked away. Beauregard did not move. I added a note to the receipts. General exhibiting pre-departure symptoms. Behavioral drift toward ridge. Forecast, desertion. I. The departure event. At 4:19 a.m., under a sky too bright for that hour, Beauregard crowed once, a long, drawn-out note that did not sound like poultry at all. It sounded architectural. It sounded like a blueprint unfolding. I opened my window in time to see him drop from the fence post, walk with absolute purpose across the yard, squeeze himself under the back pasture gate, and proceed toward the bottoms. He did not look back. Papa saw him too. His first response was deeply predictable. "Damn bird's lost his mind." Memo contradicted him immediately. She said, "No, he's got his orders." I pulled on my boots. "I'm going after him." "No, you ain't," Papa said. "That swamp will take your shoes and your future." "It took his," I said. Papa did not appreciate that remark, but he also didn't stop me from stepping into the yard and following Beauregard's tracks to the edge of the terrace, where they simply ended. The bottoms swallowed all evidence. IV. The ridge reacts. The morning he disappeared, the ridge shone again. Not a reflection, not sunlight, a glow, a faint internal luminescence like the ridge itself was exhaling photons. It wasn't bright, just aware. I stared at it until my eyes hurt. Memo came out onto the porch and stood next to me. "You feel that?" she asked. "Yes. That's the ridge taking attendance." If I had not been standing there, I would have accused her of dramatizing. But she was right. The world felt like a classroom right before roll call. Only somebody important was missing. V. Papa's breakdown. Quiet but noticeable. Papa walked the yard like a man trying to find a misplaced tool. Only the misplaced tool was a rooster who had just abandoned his post to investigate a 1,000-year-old alignment. "He'll come back," Papa said. "Sure," I said, because contradicting him felt rude. "He ain't stupid." "He's literally a chicken." "That don't mean he's stupid." I didn't argue. If the Book of Bok had taught us anything, it was that roosters occasionally do things far more intelligent than anyone expects, especially when cosmological portals are involved. VI. The official log entry. I wrote the following in the receipts at 6:12 a.m. General Beauregard has departed the premises. Trajectory southwest toward the ridge bottom interface. Behavioral profile suggests intentional pilgrimage. Possible reconnaissance mission, unclear whether sanctioned. I hesitated, then added, "Feels like a beginning." I closed the notebook and looked toward the bottoms. The fog hung low over the cypress knees, glowing faintly with the same unearned confidence I had seen on the ridge earlier. For the first time since the anomalies began, I understood something fundamental. This wasn't random. This wasn't a fluke. This wasn't even chaos. This was preparation. Beauregard wasn't lost. He wasn't confused. He was responding to a call older than our town, older than the county, older than all the conditions of modern life. He was going to meet the update halfway. VI. Closing note. The feather moves. That evening, the hens refused to roost inside the coop, choosing instead to cluster at the southwest corner of the yard, staring toward the same invisible line Beauregard had followed. The air felt charged, expectant, like a draft document waiting for an incoming revision. I wrote, "Feather relocation complete. System anticipating next instruction." I didn't know then what he was doing in the bottoms. I didn't know he was headed for the eagle's beak. I only knew one thing. The world is beginning to choose sides. And our rooster, our ridiculous, pompous, overconfident rooster, was somehow involved in the negotiations.
Code, a physical sign of his new status. He stops being just a pet and becomes a sentinel or an envoy.
The new system is restoring the genetic code to its most ecologically relevant state.
Then you have the deeper temporal glitches in the wildlife, like that enormous prehistoric-looking armadillo.
That thing demonstrates non-Euclidean locomotion. It doesn't walk around the fence post. It flickers and phases through it.
So the new system's reality rendering is still a bit buggy.
It's still stabilizing, yeah. And it's causing certain creatures to phase between temporal layers, existing in two places at once.
And all these glitch fauna, like the crows meeting in a spiral pattern,
Yeah.
they're all listening for Beauregard.
Which confirms the entire non-human ecosystem is running on a coordinated protocol, just waiting for the feather's signal.
So June, using the Book of Bok, starts connecting all these local events to the deeper cosmic architecture.
Specifically to the indigenous concept of the Path of Souls.
For those who might not be familiar, the Path of Souls is the indigenous name for the Milky Way galaxy.
And June realizes the alignment described in the ledger is astronomical. This cosmic interstate is only open when the Milky Way stands vertically over Big Mound Ridge, which the sources call the Eagle effigy.
So Beauregard wasn't just taking a stroll, he was entering an astral transportation network.
The update required a vertical link between the terrestrial hardware, the Ridge, and the galactic software, the Path of Souls.
This big realization pushes June to investigate the lowest, wettest part of the farm, the sump, the bottoms.
She correctly identifies it as a memory reservoir for the land.
And the physical anomalies there confirm it. The water reflects the sky like it's miles deep. The cypress knees are forming organized geometric patterns.
The sump is resonating with history, and that's where June finds the physical proof of the update's cyclical nature.
Baytown period pottery, dating from 400 to 700 AD.
Which corresponds almost perfectly with the 550 AD first update precedent from the Book of Bok. The sum is literally holding the memory of previous system resets.
And the last piece of the puzzle confirms the feather's security detail.
Yes. Beauregard's tracks are found to be overlapped by Steve's the Red Wolf's tracks. The feather has a designated high-resolution guardian. The cosmological emissary is being protected by the ancestral predator.
Okay, so amidst all this chaos, the most stabilizing force is actually Memo. She understands that when the system collapses, you need strict, predictable local governance.
She establishes the Cooter protocol, a set of operational procedures for managing cosmic instability. She declares herself the sovereign of the porch-based observer state.
The humor is in the dead seriousness of her rules, which are actually essential safety guidelines for interacting with a reality that's glitching out.
Let's run through a few because they are the perfect mix of folklore and high alert system safety warnings.
Okay.
Rule 1, do not walk toward odd lights. They ain't for you. The system is running diagnostics not meant for human eyes.
Rule 2, if the ridge makes a sound, pretend you didn't hear it. Sound is binding.
This suggests that acknowledging the system's output creates some kind of obligation or connection that could pull you in prematurely.
And don't answer a disembodied voice from the woods because it's usually lying.
A clear warning against malicious system echoes or corrupted data packets. And finally, stay away from the bottoms at night because things come up out of there during updates.
So the porch itself becomes the PBA zone of observation. And Memo's rocking chair isn't just furniture.
It's the regulatory body. She is the regulator of temporal tempo.
In a world where time is unstable, the porch is a fixed, reliable center.
And her consistent rocking provides the physical metronome that the rest of the ecosystem will eventually sync up with. She governs through rhythm and observation, not force.
That blend of folkloric wisdom and bureaucratic language is it's wonderful. PBA zone of observation, auditor, protocol.
It's practical survival advice for a family dealing with a reality that's running on beta software.
The groundwork is laid, the protocols are active, the manual's been found, the font has been upgraded. Now we get to the inflection point. The solstice, December 21st, 2012, the day the new system officially installs.
The approach of the solstice just heightens the system's anticipation. And Memo, knowing June needs to perceive things with higher fidelity, prepares her with the black drink ritual.
Tell us more about the Black Drake. This is another one of those crucial integrations of specific indigenous wisdom.
It is. The black drink is a traditional ceremonial caffeinated brew made from yaupon holly. Historically, it was used by many southeastern indigenous cultures to purify and sharpen the senses before major rituals.
So Memo is preparing June not just chemically, but ceremonially.
Yes, and the effect is immediate. It allows June to perceive the hidden layer. She can physically feel the pulse of the ridge and track Beauregard's trajectory as a living coordinate. Her senses are synced to the cosmic frequency.
And while this is happening, the old guard, Papa, makes his final doomed stand.
He tries one last time to light his own prescribed burn, trying to force his human, bureaucratic schedule onto the land.
Then the land just utterly rejects him. The flame freezes mid-curl. It just hangs in the air and then vanishes.
No residue, nothing. The Earth is saving its energy for the real show. Papa's fire isn't just put out, it is canceled by the system.
Solstice morning arrives, and the ritual fire is finally achieved, but it's not Papa's fire. It's the ignition, dictated by the cosmic clock.
And it behaves strangely, proving it's operating under...
Chapter 4. The Book of Bok. The day after Beauregard disappeared into the bottoms, the house felt like it was holding its breath. Even the floorboards creaked politely, as if refusing to interrupt whatever cosmic process was underway. Papa kept checking the fence line for incoming rooster activity, which is not a phrase anyone should ever have to hear before coffee. Memo spent the morning on the porch staring at the ridge like it was a courtroom witness trying to remember its lines. And I, being the only person in the family with a functioning sense of inquiry, decided to audit the attic. I do not like the attic. It is where dust goes to retire. It is also where the house stores feelings it doesn't want to discuss. But something in me, maybe instinct, maybe curiosity, maybe the low-grade dread that comes from knowing your rooster has embarked on a cosmological errand, told me the attic held information. Specifically, why Beauregard left and why the ridge had started glowing again. I climbed the narrow stairs, opened the hatch, and immediately sneezed hard enough to upset my soul. That was how I found the book. 1. The ledger that should not exist. It was wrapped in burlap and stored inside an old metal toolbox that belonged to my great-grandfather, James Tater Cooter. Tater never threw away anything that might one day be involved in a lawsuit or a snake bite, which explains why the box contained 3 roofing nails, a petrified biscuit, a horseshoe that had been divorced from its original horse, a thumbnail-sized jar labeled "Hog Medicine, Do Not Ingest," and the book. I pulled it out carefully. The cover was leather, cracked and darkened by time, with a faint imprint of a rooster's footprint stamped into the surface. Not decorative, but literal. A bird had stepped on it at some point in its past, leaving its signature like a feathery notary public. The title wasn't printed. It was carved in an oddly formal hand. The Book of Bok, a chronicle of observations pertaining to the feathered order and the keeping of the cosmic schedule. This was immediately concerning. 2. A short history of not knowing things about my own family. I had been raised with the understanding that our family was mostly normal. This was a lie. The Cooters have apparently been writing secret chicken prophecies for a century, and no one thought to bring it up at Thanksgiving. I sat on the attic floor, opened the book, and the first page read, "To whomever inherits this ledger, the bird will know before you do." Not helpful. The next page contained ink drawings of chickens arranged in solemn poses, as though participating in a legal deposition. The artwork was surprisingly good, which raised serious questions about the hobbies of my ancestors. The third page had a date. 1912, the first disappearance of the general. I stopped breathing for 2 full seconds. The first disappearance? Implying multiple? Implying precedent? I flipped the page. 3. The general, apparently, has done this before. The entry described an event almost identical to what had happened last night. a rooster named General Augustus Beauregard I, leaving the coop at 4 a.m., traveling southwest toward Big Mound Ridge during a period of cosmological agitation and returning 3 days later with a single blue egg. I read that part twice. Blue eggs are unusual, but not unheard of. A rooster being involved in the creation of one is unheard of, but given the current trajectory of my life, increasingly believable. The ledger continued. When the sky resets itself, the feather must attend, for the feather remembers what the land forgets. I felt a thrill that might have been intellectual excitement, or might have been early onset panic. 4. Memo interrupted my existential spiral. I brought the book downstairs. Memo didn't even pretend to be surprised. She just nodded and said, "Oh, good, you found our chicken Bible." "Memo," I said, "why have we never discussed the fact that our family keeps a chicken Bible?" She shrugged. "You weren't ready." "I disagree with that assessment." "You ain't ready now either." She wasn't wrong, which was irritating. 5. Papa denies, then overreacts. I showed the book to Papa. He scanned a few pages, sighed, and said, "Now listen here, June, chickens are chickens. They don't participate in whatever this is." He then proceeded to read the book from cover to cover over the next 4 hours and refused to make eye contact with anyone for the rest of the day. At one point, I heard him mutter, "I knew that bird was too confident," which was the closest he has ever come to admitting metaphysical concern. 6. Revelation in ink. The most important part of the book was not the chicken biography section. It was the cosmology section. Handwritten diagrams of Big Mound Ridge, labeled the Eagle, the Milky Way, labeled the River of Souls, a rooster silhouette, labeled the Feather, and the date December 21, 2012, circled repeatedly. The entry beneath it read, "When the sky aligns with the ridge and the feather answers the call, the update begins." I sat very still, because this meant the anomalies I'd been noticing weren't random at all. They were scheduled. The land was getting ready for something big, something old, something cosmological. And our rooster wasn't missing. He was attending. He was fulfilling a job description no one alive remembered he had. 7. Closing notes, and the part I almost didn't write down. The final page of the book contained a short paragraph written in a firmer, more urgent hand. "When the feather departs, the auditor must rise. Keep the notes. Keep the measures. Keep the time, for the world will need a witness." I closed the book slowly. It took me a moment to realize the paragraph was addressed to me, because I was the only one taking notes, the only one measuring, the only one tracking the anomalies, the only one who had noticed the vibes going into recession before anything else started to slip. I wrote with shaking hands, "The feather is gone, the book is open, the update is beginning, and apparently I'm the auditor responsible for documenting the collapse and reinstallation of reality." This was not the after-school hobby I had planned, but the ridge was glowing, the animals were uneasy, the date on the calendar was approaching, and somewhere in the bottoms, Beauregard was receiving instructions older than language, and I was the only one to keep track of it.
New system physics. The smoke rises in a perfectly thin vertical column, completely ignoring the wind.
This is the vertical river moment. The smoke connects the burn line on the ground directly to the rising Milky Way, the path of souls. This is the handshake between land and sky.
And at the same time, Big Mound Ridge the Eagle, it starts to glow intensely.
Oh.
And we learn the truth. The ridge is the physical hardware.
An eagle shadow, the effigy shape of the mound itself, rises from its spine and unfurls across that stellar river of smoke. It's the antenna connecting the local Earth grid to the galactic network.
The system is now live, but before the installation can complete, the most unstable event happens, the time slip.
The world misaligns and different temporal layers just overlap chaotically.
This is a system-critical moment. June sees 3 versions of Memo at once. Cached reality files start bubbling up. Residue from 1909, from 1985.
And the danger here isn't just that it's confusing. It's that the system could fail. It could crash the present by stacking these timelines, trapping them in this fragmented reality.
A literal blue screen of death for reality itself.
And what stops the chaos isn't human.
No, it's the highest-ranking agent in the field. Beauregard issues a single, clear crow, and the source describes it as a command that ordered the air.
It's a system command. It clears the temporal buffer and snaps reality back into coherence so the installation can proceed.
After that command, the install phase begins. A wave of silent quiet descends, and then entropy pauses.
Metal stops rusting. Dust motes hang in the air. The laws of physics are suspended.
And every single clock, digital and analog, resets to 12:00.
The world is this perfect paused environment for the software to load onto the hardware.
The installation is finalized by the feather's return. Beauregard emerges from that corridor of smoke and stars, and he's described as larger dimensionally and cosmologically significant.
He's not just a chicken anymore. He's the successfully rebooted cosmic emissary. And he delivers the sign of the new system directly to the auditor.
Beauregard gives June a warm, vibrating blue egg. The Oceanin, this is the prophecy object, the final installation key.
When she touches it, the ridge achieves full, sustained light, and the update is complete.
The post-reboot assessment reveals a world that is stable but structurally strange.
The local infrastructure has been re-encoded with the new system's rhythm.
The house lights now pulse in measured intervals. 1.2 seconds on, 0.8 seconds off. It's not random. It's the encoded rhythmic frequency of the new reality, a heartbeat imposed on the infrastructure.
And June gets her formal administrative status update.
It comes as a somatic, non-linguistic text. Auditor June Cooter, status, linked, protocol, observe, record, advise. She is now fully integrated.
And the contrast with the outside world, the nearby town of Crosset, is stark.
Crosset is completely unsynced. Clocks are blinking 12.00 chaotically. Trees are leafing out in the middle of winter deciduous software.
And people are arguing with the air. Industrial time has lost its jurisdiction, and it's just chaos because they don't have the protocols that Memo established.
But the Cooter farm is coherent. June's final essential check, the Vibes Index, confirms it. Restored to pre-glitch baseline with improved harmonic overlay.
So the world feels right, again, because the ecological and cosmic systems are finally aligned, even if Papa is still incredibly stressed out.
This chronicle just hammers home that the update wasn't the end of the world. It was the installation of a massive, bureaucratic, maintenance-heavy new reality. And now the long labor of running that system begins.
The system is live, but it needs a human interface. It needs governance. And the new system immediately sets up a hierarchy based on competence and alignment, not on what people want.
The community leadership is basically formed under extreme duress. The local farmers, the loggers, the neighbors, they all saw the aligned fire and the feather's return. And they interpret this through their very human, hierarchical lens.
They assume Papa must be the authority.
They think the rooster walked the sky for him. They completely miss the cosmic protocol. Their conclusion is just, Papa is the fire expert, so he must be in charge of the restoration.
So they form the Lower Wichita Prescribed Burn Association, the PBA.
And they basically corner Papa into becoming the grand igniter by a unanimous vote. And the best part is that Papa vigorously opposes his own nomination.
He argues against his own appointment.
But he's overruled for conflict of interest. The bureaucracy has landed. Papa, who just wanted control over one little burn, is now the unwilling lifelong leader of a localized fire cult.
And June becomes the alignment auditor.
The necessary technical position. And Memo's porch, that stable temporal center, becomes the official LOPBA headquarters.
The new government is a porch, a frustrated old man, and a notebook.
But the truly revolutionary shift in authority comes from the hog. Pig makes her move for executive authority based purely on merit. She completely bypasses the human hierarchy.
This has to be a key statement on meritocracy, replacing the old ways in this new system.
Oh, absolutely. Pig uses her innate understanding of spiral geometry and glitch physics to build a working, methane-producing biodigester.
It's labeled Future Energy, and it establishes Cooter Energy, LLC.
The flame is stable, clean, and it powers the entire farm, independent of the unstable outside grid.
And this feat of engineering immediately promotes Pig to Director of Energy and Agriculture by de facto system decree.
She now officially outranks Papa in 2 critical fields.
And Papa is coping poorly.
Mostly because the hog is objectively more competent both industrially and cosmologically than he is. It is the ultimate humiliation for the old human order.
Meanwhile, the land itself begins its autonomous restoration. The new system just starts initiating old ecological code in the garden.
Without any human planting or direction, the essential symbiotic trio corn, beans, and squash, the 3 sisters of indigenous permaculture, they just start growing.
In perfect unseasonal spirals. The land is executing old, proven, symbiotic code.
And the high point of humor here is Papa trying to argue with the squash leaves about their unscheduled growth cycle.
He's trying to impose his old linear calendar on the spiral-growing squash.
And Memo steps in and forces him to apologize for arguing with 1,000 years of ecological tradition.
It just shows the new system's ruthless efficiency. The human ego is the first thing that has to be purged for the system to stabilize.
But the new system doesn't just reorganize agriculture. It forces the Cooters to quantify the environmental neglect of the past century.
The atmosphere itself issues a direct, formal grievance.
A resonant, low rumble pins Papa to the ground. He can't move, and the sky projects a glowing anatomical map onto the clouds.
And the message is clear, non-negotiable, and terrifyingly specific.
The Cooter family owes 80 years of burn debt due to fire exclusion, starting in 1935 with that 10 a.m. policy. The restoration has to begin immediately.
The narrative takes this poetic idea of ecological debt and makes it a formal, quantifiable demand from the system itself. It's an environmental lien against the land.
And Papa, the unwilling grand igniter, now has to manage the repayment.
Which leads directly to the formalization of June's crucial role. She has to be the interface between these two worlds.
The footbridge on the property hums. It delivers a somatic, non-linguistic message directly to her, confirming her formal designation as interpreter of the new system.
So she is now officially responsible for translating all these complex temporal, ecological, and cosmological signals into language the community can actually understand and act on.
She is the official API, the application programming interface between the ancient hardware of the land and the local human operators of the LOPBA.
She has to translate galactic geometry into prescribed burn plans.
And the final step for total system stabilization is communal coherence. It requires more than just individual compliance. It needs social synchronization.
The sing-along, the community farmers, PBA members, even the children, they all gather spontaneously at the ridge, drawn by this intense, stable frequency coming from the land.
The ridge is humming, providing the structural reset sequence. And June, the interpreter, translates that humming into a simple, actionable melody.
When the night lost its balance and the ridge found its breath.
And the community sings the refrain. They achieve a state of communal coherence. And the source emphasizes that this collective action achieves a structural reset that no amount of technical auditing could do alone.
The system requires song, tradition, and collective acknowledgement to work.
And that moment confirms the stabilization of the new system and the final acceptance of the new meritocratic hierarchy.
Memo is the tempo regulator, Pig is the industrial authority, Beauregard is the cosmic feather, and Papa, still disgruntled, is the necessary unwilling grand igniter.
The chaos is gone, replaced by a clear chain of command rooted in ecological necessity and cosmic protocol.
And there we have it. The comprehensive chronicle of the new system, as audited by Joan Cooter. We went from a tiny clock hiccup at 12:01 p.m. to a fully functional, bureaucratically governed cosmic reality in rural Arkansas.
Complete with the hog-led energy grid and a philosophical chicken as the cosmological emissary.
The core insight here, and what makes this so compelling, is that central twist. The world didn't end, it just demanded maintenance.
All the dramatic events, the time slip, the feather's journey, the glowing ridge, that was all just the necessary installation phase for the new operating system, fixing a profound backlog of ecological debt.
It's a brilliant narrative device. It fuses ancient wisdom, The 550/80 precedent, the Path of Souls, the Three Sisters, with this very modern systems language. Update, reboot, audit, LLC.
It brilliantly suggests that the key to survival is recognizing that the most powerful forces in the universe aren't dramatic. They're predictable, they operate on protocol, and they require consistent, often tedious chores.
And the humor, which our listener Brad really wanted to highlight, it comes from that collision of two worlds. This high-concept cosmic mandate crashing into the stubborn, low-stakes reality of Arkansas farm life.
It really embodies that beautiful absurdity you find in stories like The Big Lebowski, where something of immense, almost cosmic significance lands right in the lap of someone who's just trying to, get a prescribed burn going.
The ultimate success of the Cooter family is their ability to synthesize data and maintain rhythm. Whether it's Pig building that mathematically perfect spiral or Memo's porch chair regulating the flow of time.
The system demands competence and compliance with rhythm, which leaves us with the final provocative thought for you, the listener.
If the new system relies on maintaining local ecological debt and following the rhythm of the land, the pace of Memo's rocker, the necessity of the crawdad choir, what essential non-digital rhythms in your own life or your community are currently being ignored?
What deep ancestral or ecological maintenance are you putting off or dismissing, just waiting for a catastrophic update to force compliance and appoint an unwilling grand igniter in your place?
Think about your own internal fire deficit. That is a powerful question to mull over. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the meticulously crafted chronicles of June Cooter and the new system.
We'll see you next time.